The world was unprepared for what descended from the heavens that fateful night. Captain Marcus Raynor stood on the rooftop of a crumbling skyscraper, scanning the horizon through night vision goggles. Below him, the sprawling metropolis of Ashen City lay cloaked in darkness, its lights extinguished by a power outage that had spread without warning. The air felt electric, charged with a tension that prickled at the edges of his consciousness. His instincts, honed by years of combat, whispered that something was deeply, irreparably wrong. Behind him, his second-in-command, Sergeant Ellis Kane, crouched low with a rifle slung across his chest. "Marcus," Kane muttered, his voice barely audible over the distant wail of sirens. "You seeing this?" Marcus lowered his goggles and squinted at the night sky. What at first appeared to be a meteor shower quickly revealed itself to be something far more deliberate. Dozens of glowing, metallic orbs streaked through the atmosphere, leaving trails of faint blue light. They moved with precision, not the chaotic randomness of falling debris. "God help us," Marcus murmured. "This isn't a natural event." The orbs hovered above the city, their luminescent surfaces pulsing with an otherworldly rhythm. Then, without warning, they began to descend, slow and deliberate, like predators closing in on their prey. Marcus activated his comms. "Command, this is Raynor. We've got unidentified aerial phenomena over Ashen City. Advise." Static his back at him, the line dead. He exchanged a grim look with Kane, who shook his head. "Jammed, just like the rest of the systems. They planned this." Suddenly, the orbs emitted a high-pitched resonance that vibrated through the air, shaking buildings and forcing Marcus to his knees. Windows shattered, and car alarms blared in discordant unison. Before anyone could react, the orbs released a burst of blinding energy that cascaded across the skyline. In an instant, chaos erupted. Entire blocks were vaporized, leaving behind only scorched earth and molten steel. Fires raged unchecked, casting an orange glow that painted the survivors' faces in stark relief. The orbs moved with surgical precision, targeting infrastructure, communication hubs, and military installations. "Move!" Marcus barked, pulling Kane to his feet. "We're sitting ducks here." They descended the fire escape, joining the rest of their unit, a hardened group of soldiers armed with experimental weaponry. Corporal Jensen, the team's tech specialist, was furiously typing into a portable console. "Still no comms," Jensen growled, sweat beading on his brow. "Whatever signal they're using, it's stronger than anything we've seen before." Marcus nodded grimly. "Then we do this the old-fashioned way. Recon and regroup." The team navigated the shattered streets, weaving through panicked civilians and flaming wreckage. The air reeked of burnt plastic and ozone. Every shadow felt alive, every sound a potential threat. Their journey led them to the city's edge, where a downed orb lay embedded in the pavement. Its surface glowed faintly, like cooling embers. Marcus gestured for silence and approached cautiously, his rifle trained on the alien craft. "Cover me," he ordered, and Kane and Jensen flanked him, weapons ready. The orb cracked open with a hiss, releasing a cloud of shimmering vapor. From within emerged a drone, its insect-like body composed of black, interlocking plates that seemed to shift and breathe. Its limbs ended in razor-sharp appendages, and its glowing red, I scanned the surroundings with a predatory intensity. "Open fire!" Marcus shouted. The team unleashed a hail of bullets, but the drone moved with impossible speed, dodging and weaving like a specter. It retaliated with a burst of plasma, narrowly missing Marcus and melting a nearby car into slag. "Flank it!" Kane roared, his voice cutting through the din. Jensen darted to the side, deploying a makeshift EMP grenade. With a deafening pop, the device went off, sending a ripple of energy that temporarily disabled the drone's movements. Seizing the opportunity, Marcus closed the distance and drove his knife into a vulnerable joint between the drone's plates. Sparks erupted as the machine convulsed and collapsed. Breathing heavily, Marcus stepped back, surveying the wreckage. "That was a scout," he said, his tone grim. "The real threat is still out there." Jensen crouched over the drone's remains, extracting a small, pulsating core. "This tech is unlike anything I've ever seen," he muttered. "If we can reverse engineer it, maybe we'll stand a chance." Before Marcus could respond, the ground beneath them trembled. A low, resonant hum filled the air as more drones emerged from the shadows, their numbers multiplying with alarming speed. "We're outnumbered," Kane said, his voice tight. "Fall back." Marcus commanded. The team retreated into the labyrinthine streets, pursued by the relentless swarm. They fought desperately, using every ounce of their training to survive. Explosions lit up the night as the city transformed into a battlefield. Eventually, they found refuge in an abandoned subway station, its depths offering temporary respite from the chaos above. As they regrouped, Marcus stared at the pulsating core in Jensen's hands. "This invasion isn't random," he said. "They've got a plan, and we're going to figure out what it is." The team nodded, their resolve hardening. Despite the odds, they knew the fight was far from over. Marcus clenched his fists, the weight of the world pressing on his shoulders. "This is just the beginning," he said, his voice a mixture of determination and dread. Above them, the alien orbs continued their methodical destruction, their cold, mechanical precision heralding a conflict that would test humanity's very survival. The subway station echoed with the muffled roars of destruction above, each rumble a grim reminder of the chaos engulfing Ashen City. Captain Marcus Raynor leaned against the cold, damp wall, his mind racing as he studied the pulsating alien core Jensen had extracted from the downed drone. Its faint glow bathed their makeshift hideout in an eerie blue light, casting long shadows that seemed to breathe and writhe with tension. "We need a plan," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the turmoil gnawing at his thoughts. "Plan?" Sergeant Ellis Kane scoffed, pacing back and forth. "What plan? We're outgunned, outnumbered, and have no clue what we're dealing with." Marcus shot him a sharp look. "Panicking won't get us anywhere, Kane. We adapt. That's what we do." Jensen sat cross-legged on the floor, his fingers flying over the keys of a battered tablet. He'd managed to jury-rig a connection to the alien core, extracting fragments of data. His brow furrowed as lines of alien script scrolled across the screen. "This tech, it's not just advanced. It's centuries ahead of anything we've got," Jensen said, his voice tinged with awe. "These drones are networked, controlled by some central intelligence. If we can find and disable the hub, we might have a shot at shutting them down." Marcus nodded, a flicker of hope igniting in his chest. "Where's the hub located?" Jensen hesitated, his fingers pausing mid-typing. "That's the problem. The signal's encrypted, and the core isn't giving me much. But if we get our hands on a larger piece of their tech, maybe I can triangulate it." Kane shook his head, his expression grim. "You're talking about going back out there? Into that?" He gestured toward the subway tunnel, where faint tremors rattled loose debris from the ceiling. "We don't have a choice," Marcus said firmly. "Every second we sit here, more people die. We move now." The team geared up in silence, their resolve evident in the set of their jaws and the steely determination in their eyes. They emerged from the subway into a city that was barely recognizable. Skyscrapers lay in ruins, their jagged remains silhouetted against a sky choked with ash and smoke. Fires raged unchecked, and the acrid stench of burning metal filled the air. They moved cautiously, sticking to the shadows and using the wreckage as cover. The once bustling streets were now eerily silent, save for the occasional distant roar of alien machinery. Every step felt like a gamble, each breath a borrowed moment. As they approached the destroyed communications tower, their worst fears materialized. A massive alien walker loomed in the distance, its towering frame bristling with weaponry. The machine moved with deliberate menace, its spindly legs crushing vehicles and debris beneath them. Smaller drones flitted around it like hornets, scanning the area with piercing red beams. Marcus held up a clenched fist, signaling the team to halt. He scanned the walker, noting its heavily armored core and the shimmering energy field that surrounded it. "That's our target," he whispered. "You're kidding," Kane muttered. "How do you expect us to take that thing down?" "We don't," Marcus replied. "Not directly. Jensen, can you patch into its network from here?" Jensen set up his equipment, his hands trembling slightly as he connected his tablet to the alien core. "I'll need to get closer," he said, his voice barely audible. Marcus nodded. "We'll cover you. Move fast and stay low." The team advanced, their movements synchronized and deliberate. Kane and Corporal Darius Pike provided covering fire, their rifles spitting bursts of experimental energy, rounds that briefly staggered the drones. Marcus and Jensen darted from cover to cover, inching closer to the walker. Suddenly, one of the smaller drones let out a shrill alarm, its red eye locking onto their position. The walker turned, its weapon systems humming to life. "Down!" Marcus yelled, tackling Jensen as a beam of searing plasma vaporized the ground where they'd stood moments earlier. The air erupted with gunfire and explosions as the team engaged in a desperate battle. Kane and Pike fought valiantly, their relentless assault buying precious seconds from Marcus and Jensen. "Almost there," Jensen shouted, his voice strained as he connected his tablet to the walker's external interface. The machine retaliated with brutal efficiency, its plasma cannons reducing entire buildings to rubble. Marcus felt the heat of an explosion singe his back as he shielded Jensen. "Hurry up, Jensen," he barked, firing at an approaching drone. "I'm in," Jensen exclaimed. "But the encryption is too complex. I need more time." Time was a luxury they didn't have. Kane let out a guttural cry as a drone's blade slashed across his shoulder, forcing him to the ground. Pike rushed his aid, only to be pinned by another drone. Marcus clenched his jaw, his mind racing. They couldn't hold out much longer. He glanced at the alien core in Jensen's lap, its glow intensifying as it interacted with the walker's network. "Give me that," Marcus ordered, grabbing the core. "What are you?" Jensen began, but Marcus cut him off. "Just trust me." Marcus sprinted toward the walker, the core in hand. He dodged beams of plasma and shards of debris, his every movement fueled by desperation and determination. As he reached the machine's massive leg, he slammed the core into a vulnerable joint. The reaction was immediate. The walker convulsed, its systems overloading as the alien core disrupted its network. Sparks and flames erupted from its joints, and the smaller drones froze midair before crashing to the ground. The walker let out a mechanical screech, its towering frame collapsing in on itself. Marcus barely escaped the ensuing explosion, diving behind a pile of rubble as the shockwave knocked him unconscious. When he came to, Jensen was kneeling over him, shaking his shoulder. "You did it," Jensen said, his voice trembling with relief. Marcus groaned, sitting up. The walker lay in ruins, its smoldering remains a testament to their hard-fought victory. But as he looked around, he saw the cost. Kane and Pike were injured, their wounds severe but not fatal. "This isn't over," Marcus said, his voice hoarse but resolute. "We've won a battle, not the war. They'll come back, stronger than before." Jensen held up his tablet, displaying a faint signal. "The data I pulled, it points to a central hub outside the city. If we strike there, we might end this for good." Marcus nodded, his resolve solidifying. Despite their exhaustion, the team stood together, united by a shared purpose. The struggle for survival was far from over, but they were ready to face whatever came next. With their path clear and their spirits steeled, they prepared for the final stand against an enemy that seemed unstoppable. The air was thick with the acrid smell of scorched metal and ozone. Marcus Rayner stood atop a ridge overlooking the wasteland that stretched toward the alien hub, its spire-like structure pulsating with an ominous, otherworldly glow. The remnants of Ashen City's resistance forces had gathered here, a ragtag group of soldiers, engineers, and scavengers who had survived the initial onslaught. "Listen up," Marcus called out, his voice cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. "This is our last chance. That hub is the key to their operation. We take it down and we cripple them for good." The crowd fell silent, their faces a mixture of fear and determination. Marcus's gaze swept over them, lingering on Kane and Jensen, who stood by his side. Kane's shoulder was hastily bandaged, his usual bravado replaced with a grim focus. Jensen clutched his tablet, the device now loaded with the schematics he had extracted from the walker. "This isn't just about survival," Marcus continued. "It's about sending a message. We fight not because we have to, but because we choose to. They invaded our world, but they'll learn what humanity is capable of when pushed to the brink." A cheer rose from the group, the sound echoing across the barren landscape. It was a fragile hope, but it was enough to ignite the fire within them. The plan was as daring as it was dangerous. While a diversionary team engaged the alien defenses, Marcus, Jensen, and Kane would infiltrate the hub using the schematics Jensen had decrypted. The objective: plant an improvised EMP device at the core of the structure, disrupting the network and triggering a cascade failure. The journey to the hub was fraught with peril. The group moved under the cover of darkness, navigating through a labyrinth of trenches and shattered terrain. Alien patrols were everywhere, their mechanical forms eerily silent as they scanned the area. The resistance forces engaged them in scattered skirmishes, each encounter costing lives but buying precious time. As they neared the hub, the towering spire loomed above them like a monolith, its surface shimmering with an iridescent energy field. Marcus raised his hand, signaling the team to halt. "Jensen, is the field destabilized enough for us to breach?" Marcus whispered. Jensen adjusted the frequency on a portable disruptor, watching as the energy field flickered and waned. "It should hold. But once we're in, it's all or nothing." "Understood," Marcus replied. "Kane, you take point." They slipped through the breach, the hum of the energy field sending shivers down their spines. Inside, the hub was a labyrinth of corridors, each one pulsating with the same eerie blue light as the alien core. The air was cold and sterile, the sound of their footsteps muffled by the strange, organic material lining the walls. Kane led the way, his rifle at the ready. "This place feels alive," he muttered, his voice tinged with unease. "Focus," Marcus said. "We've got a job to do." They followed Jensen's guidance, his tablet displaying a real-time map of the structure. The alien architecture was both mesmerizing and disorienting, its design unlike anything they had encountered before. As they approached the central chamber, their progress was halted by a group of drones. These were unlike the ones they had faced before, sleeker, faster, and armed with energy weapons that crackled with deadly precision. "Contact!" Kane shouted, opening fire. The chamber erupted into chaos as the team engaged the drones. Marcus moved with practiced precision, his shots finding their marks even as he dodged incoming fire. Kane fought like a man possessed, his injuries forgotten as he laid down suppressive fire. Jensen, though less experienced in combat, held his ground, using his knowledge of the drone systems to exploit their weaknesses. The battle was intense and unforgiving, the drones relentless in their assault. One by one, the resistance fighters fell, their sacrifices paving the way for the mission to continue. By the time the final drone was destroyed, Marcus and his team were bloodied and exhausted but alive. The central chamber was unlike anything they had seen. A massive, pulsating core dominated the space, its surface covered in alien glyphs that shifted and writhed like living entities. The air hummed with energy, the vibrations resonating deep in their bones. "Jensen, the EMP," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the awe he felt. Jensen hurriedly set up the device, his hands trembling as he connected it to the core's interface. This is their brain," he muttered. "If this goes, everything goes." A deep, mechanical voice echoed through the chamber, its tone devoid of emotion. "Intruders detected. Termination protocol initiated. The walls came alive as alien constructs emerged, their forms shifting and merging into a massive, multi-limbed guardian. "Defend Jensen," Marcus yelled, taking up position between the guardian and the EMP device. The battle was unlike anything they had faced. The guardian moved with terrifying speed, its limbs lashing out with destructive force. Marcus and Kane fought valiantly, their every move a desperate attempt to buy Jensen the time he needed. Almost there, Jensen shouted, his voice strained. The guardian's strikes grew more ferocious, its relentless assault threatening to overwhelm them. Kane let out a cry as he was thrown against the wall, his weapon shattered. Marcus gritted his teeth, his body aching as he continued to fight. "Done!" Jensen yelled, hitting the final key. The EMP device activated, unleashing a surge of energy that rippled through the chamber. The Guardian froze mid-attack, its form disintegrating into a cascade of light. The core convulsed, its glyphs flashing erratically before shattering into fragments. The hub trembled as the network collapsed, its power source destroyed. Marcus grabbed Jensen and Kane, dragging them toward the exit as the structure began to implode. They barely made it out, the explosion behind them lighting up the night sky. The alien forces across the city faltered and fell, their connection severed. Marcus collapsed onto the ground, his chest heaving as he stared at the burning remains of the hub. Around him, the surviving resistance fighters began to emerge, their cheers of victory echoing into the night. "It's over," Jensen said, his voice filled with relief. "For now," Marcus replied, his gaze hard and unyielding. "They'll come back. But when they do, we'll be ready." The team stood together, battered but unbroken, their resolve stronger than ever. Humanity had faced the brink of annihilation and survived. And as the first rays of dawn pierced through the smoke-filled sky, they knew their fight was far from over.